little bit just so I can see it. It's there. It's happening.
It's happening.
Good morning. It's a bit earlier today, so I'm gonna kind of
It
go
is.
morning instead of afternoon. Yeah.
Yep.
How are you feeling, Mark? Have you got any illnesses or self-inflicted
I
struggles at the
feel
moment?
I feel very chirpy today.
Oh,
Not
okay.
not at all. And not at all. Stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning drinking beer with
Very
my
good.
dad.
Very good.
Yeah,
I'm
I
still
am
ill.
struggling.
I'm not as worse as I was yesterday, but I am definitely not that much better. But you're not here to listen to me and Mark mope about our illnesses and self-inflicted head hangovers.
I don't really have a leg to stand on, do I? To
you
be
know,
honest, mine is complete. I like that. That'd have to be a certain level of lack of awareness to be like, oh, boo me. I had fun last night.
Right. So, if you've not watched this stream before, this is the 30 Days of Tools live stream. And if you don't know what 30 Days of Tools is, it's the latest 30 Days of Testing initiative by Ministry of Testing. And what we do is we pick a topic, tools in this instance, and we create a daily challenge for you to take part in, which is designed to get you sharing, thinking, connecting, and basically improving the whole community's awareness of different tools. And that's how we do that. So you can do that by just following our posts each day as we share them, or you can subscribe to get the challenge in your inbox every morning. And we try and centralize it so you can take part wherever you like underneath. You can take part on this stream if you want to. If you want to comment to us, we'll happily engage with your comments. If you want to post underneath wherever you're watching this, so be it. Or you can go in the Slack, or you can jump on to the club. But either way, ideally take part wherever you can. And we are on day 12. Oof.
Day 12. We're almost at the halfway mark.
Not far.
Oh, yeah.
So today's an interesting one because it can be perceived in a few ways, but I think it's tied to money more than anything. So day 12 is, how do you convince your team or company to invest in tools? So the little prompts that Simon's given us is kind of what techniques or methods have you tried to convince people? How do you respond if your team is a bit reluctant to invest in tools? And how you demonstrate the value of the tools without wasting too much of your time or others' time. So there we go.
Yeah.
How do you convince teams to invest in tools?
I've got a good story for this.
Yeah?
I don't know if this is...
Go on.
Go on.
No, go on.
It's not one I would recommend people do all the time, but I once wrote an essay in an email explaining why we had to switch tool sets. So it was 2,000 words, this email.
Wow.
Yeah, it was epic. It didn't intend to be epic, but basically they agreed the switch on the grounds that if someone would write that much about why we should switch, they didn't read it. They just saw the volume of text and went, it's easier to just go, okay, Mark, than to read the email. Not always advised, doesn't always pay off, but that's always my favourite memory of getting what I wanted by brute force with words.
Nice.
It worked.
I think that's it. There's a few things I'm seeing here, and Simon hinted at it. You've got the idea of time, right? So you've kind of hinted at it there. They're not going to read your 2,000 word email or essay. So it's kind of like, boom, save myself some time, Mark. Go ahead, do what you like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I think time is the big thing that needs to be discussed with this question. Like, it's not just about like the cash to go and buy, a commercial tool, let's say, or a license or whatever it may be. It's also about the time because, I absolutely love open source software, but this idea that it's free is often misleading because while it's free to download and get up and running, other things take longer in terms of time sometimes, like getting support. Like, we mentioned in some of the previous streams, if there's a good community, if there's good docs, it's going to help. But if that isn't there, you're probably going to invest a lot of time, like, tinkering with the tool and doing this. Whereas if you had a license or a commercial tool, you can get that support a lot quicker. So yeah, I think the argument tends to, for me, is I always frame my arguments around time and not so much about the actual cost.
Yeah, I think one I like to trade on is confidence as well. So, like, that third point, the third question Simon was talking about is this idea of like, how can you tell if something is, delivering value to a team? And I think confidence is a good one. So like, especially like more in the automated space, checking space and stuff like that. But it's that sort of idea of, if the thing that we've implemented and put in is making us feel more comfortable to make changes and to react to things, then that feels to me like that's my ROI rather than the did we save money or
Well, we've got a great example we can talk about, haven't we? So if we think because there's no need to tie this to testing exactly, as in testing tools. So you've recently asked me, can I have some money to buy a tool for MOT? Or to increase your number of like zaps. So I can't remember your argument because I probably just said yes anyway. But like you did send me an argument, and like what was the motivation behind getting more zaps? Or explain what zaps are as well for people who perhaps don't know.
So we've started adopting Zapier, which is like an API integration tool with like a nice UI, so you can connect like one of the main, two of the main drivers we're using it for at the moment is for Crowdcast and connecting Crowdcast with our platform. And then we're using it for a tool called Orbit, which just sort of helps us understand where things are in the community, that sort of thing. But yeah, the main sort of thing that I was sort of sharing was, there was two factors, and it goes back to your time thing. So being able to use these automations means that we don't have to do some of these things manually, and trying to get rid of some of that sort of noise around the roles that we have. So we've been looking at tools around sort of buffering the sort of standard tweets that we do to announce courses coming out or articles, that sort of thing. So there was that aspect. But then there was also an element of like improving engagement. So like with the Crowdcast thing, it was, if we can register everyone on a Crowdcast event for them, that's one less step for people attending it, and they're more encouraged to come along. And we actually measured it and watched as we did an experiment. We did some with Zapier, some without, sometimes intentionally, sometimes by accident. And then we tried like a combination of email and stuff. So we were tracking each event to sort of see what the sign up rate was and versus the attendance rate. And now we've got to this point where it's a case of we can look at it and go, well, actually, that's helped as well. So we set sort of clear goals in terms of what it was that we were hoping to achieve.
And I think the key thing as well is that you didn't hint on was we could have rolled our own in some of these cases, but like the time to market, because we have technical people in our company, right? We have developers, we have people with the skills, but the actual time to market was so much quicker. It was a lot quicker with using Zapier. So it's not the end solution potentially. We might end up integrating it into our own core systems, but right now it does the job.
And that's it. Yeah, it's like the motivation is, this is the thing that we ultimately want, but this is the nice gold-plated, shiny, yummy, extra luxurious thing that we want. But that's going to cost us a lot of money and time to develop that. So first of all, let's use something that's cheaper, easier to set up, to actually measure whether this is something that is of use. And then ultimately that's what we've done. Actually, we with that sort of stuff, the registration process is now more baked into our platform.
So I can see, definitely. I can see a trend I've probably had more people come to me with doing this than as opposed to myself actually trying to get it. Most of the time I am down the open source route, but I think of it if I want to know what problem you're facing. So I'm keen to hear why are you even on this journey? So what's the narrative? What problems? What hurdles are you hitting? What blockers? We're actually going to talk about it in our workshop today, aren't we? Like, where's the friction? So tell me your pain. Like, I want to hear what you're struggling with, or I want to hear, which is slightly harder sell, but I want to hear what are you going to be able to do if I give you this tool? So if I give you this tool, what testing might be possible now? Perhaps you can dig deeper, or you talk about yourself a lot. Having this multiple tool belts, and you can start going off in lots of different avenues because you have these abilities. So once I've got that, I can relate to you now a little bit. I might not fully understand, might not be as technical as you, or really might not care. But what I do care is that I can see it. Can see that you care. I can see that it's going to make an impact for you. And then I would want to see, not necessarily finer details, but I'd be interested to know rough costs. And then I would always ask, like, what are the alternatives? So, if you're coming at me with just one tool, I'm immediately going to say, well, what are the alternatives? Because then it helps me rank them. If you tell me, well, there's 3 commercial tools that are all £2,000 each, or the other alternative is this open source project that's not been maintained for about 3, 4, 5 months, etc., then I can start to potentially, relate to you. But yeah, knowing your audience, taking the problem in a way that they understand, and making sure you're prepared with your reasonings and your alternatives. I think that's kind of how I'm ready to attack that problem.
Yeah, it's the thing we always talk about in AIT, it's problems before tools. And the way that you're talking right now reminds me of Keith Klane's talk that he did at Test Bash, 2014, I think it was, with the how to talk to a CIO or C-level people. But he was always sort of, you don't come with problems, you come with solutions to problems. So it's sort of like, I've identified this problem and I have a way to solve it. But you lead with the problem, and then these are the solutions. Can I get a rubber stamp for one of those and choose that, rather than what I've experienced in the past, which is we're using this tool or we're going to do this tool. Why? Because
And I think there's 2 ways I've got another thing we can add to this, but I think, go back to Keith's talk. So it's a fantastic talk. It's, I can't remember. I think it is called Talking to C-Level People or something like that. But even if you just search for Keith Klane on the MOT website. But he makes it very clear as well that they're not really interested in hearing about testing. For them, it will be mostly time. And obviously time has a value, right? So if you're coming to me telling me that me buying you this tool is going to save you 10 hours a release, then I can do math in my head, which means, well, that's about a day and a half. This person costs me 400 quid a day. Then I can work out that that's about 600 quid. So I'm going to need, 4 releases until I get my money back. That sounds pretty good to me. We release every week. That sounds like good business. Whereas I don't need to hear the ins and outs of the testing problem because I'm not going to understand. But if it was like a test manager or a director of testing, perhaps they might have more understanding. But if you're literally going to the CFO or some sort of finance person, they probably just want to hear, how much, when will I get my money back, and so forth and so forth.
I think another thing to add as well is like understanding your domain as well. So I worked for a company that security was very, very important because we were working in like secure information being passed across entities. And we had, I can't remember the ISO standard, but like the security standard. So any tool that I wanted to use, especially if it was like one that was like cloud-based, I remember it was Applitools. I wanted to get a license for Applitools. I had to run it all past the security officer first as well. So understanding what his requirements and his needs are. And in the end, we were like, for some reason, there was something about it that he was a bit sort of, I'm not sure, and we had to park it. But it was, if I'd have spent a bit more time understanding what his regs are, his statutes and stuff that he has, and his boxes that he has to check, being able to sort of say, hey, I've got this tool that I want to use, don't worry, I've thought about all the things that you need to consider, and I think it's going to tick all those boxes for you, rather than I haven't considered this at all, because the next time you come back and you ask about your next tool, they're going to be like, oh, that person who doesn't do the work wants more shiny things that I'm probably going to have to say no to.
Again, no, you're right. There's many people to consider, isn't there? Because so we've talked a lot about time and money, but there is also like the rest of the team. Like, is it a tool that we talk about this in AIT? Is it a tool that's suitable for them? So you've got everyone who's going to have a knock-on effect, paying for it, using it, security. Does it fit in the pipeline? There's lots of things to consider. When you're making these choices. So obviously then getting that investment to run with you, whether that be time, confidence or cost. You've got to factor a lot of that stuff in. But let's move on, because we've got a workshop to do at midday. So let's see what the community is up to. So there's been 5 replies this morning, quite a nice number of views. So Christoph's gone for the technique of answering Simon's questions. What techniques or methods have you tried that convince others the importance of tooling? I don't get the answer, but he's gone for version control. Perhaps it's a joke that goes over my head, I'm not entirely sure. But I think he's meant to have written, I've seen servers filled with files and folders named backup, backup, backup. So I think I think he's convinced people to use version control as opposed to doing the technique of creating lots of backup folders. You don't want to look on my desktop then at some point, because I just have screenshots from this month and screenshots from that month, and I don't delete things. If the team is reluctant, so again, this is a nice, interesting, different, more direct standpoint, but if they're reluctant, we say let's try it for a week, and if it's shit, then we'll ditch it.
But I like the drama of and never talk about it again. Like it's like some unwritten sort of rule that's we don't mention that tool in this office.
But he's really valid point though, the experiment angle. We talk about the Hello World example, but give the tool a go for an agreed period of time, and if you don't see the benefits, then don't continue down that journey. But if you see some, then perhaps it's worth the effort.
And that's a good experiments. Thinking about sort of your process and how you can take advantage of that to suggest experiments. So if you have retrospectives, sort of saying, this problem that we're having, or this friction we're having as we're trying to get our work out to our users is X, Y, Z. You can be like, well, here's an idea. Let's try a tool for that, and let's do an experiment, and then let's come back at our next retro in 2 weeks and discuss it again. So actually, because that helps as well with the retro, because it changes it from being a group therapy session to more like we're doing actionable, measurable things to try and improve our working process.
Excellent. So I'll let you do this one if you're...
So Anne-Laur's talking about many contexts. So it kind of fits into what I was saying before, is being aware of what your domain is, what your context is going to help you determine how you pitch it. I think, working in a startup, it might be like you literally need to talk to the person who holds the credit card. Whereas if you're in I remember working in a bank, and all we wanted was the latest version of Java in a box. And the hoops we jumped through to get that, because there was so many layers of administration and stuff to deal with. That was, it's that sort of, you almost have like so Anna says, like, is it too expensive? I also say, to bring it back to my email example, is this a hill I'm willing to die on? Is this going to be expensive in terms of time for the team to get something to adopt as well? So.
I think you're right though, the hill you die on, but the longer it takes, the more it's going to be expensive. So the longer this process takes to decide or evaluate, or the powers that be make a decision, the more it costs. So, I've come to you saying it's going to save me this much time, but if it's taking you 2 months to approve it or whatever, then, the cost keeps going up.
You think about the spoon theory, it's these things, they're not just a quick conversation. Sometimes they can be a drain on your spoons. So you have to consider that as well.
I think it's nice to see Peter Anderson commenting here. So, he's coming out with, depends who you're talking to, but if you're convincing the bean counters, the finance people, then the technical details are not really that relevant. And, we hinted at that ourselves. Again, it depends who you're talking to, so know your audience. But for them, it will be a simple case of ROI. So, if you're asking for how much are you bringing me back? And then, i.e., over the cost of the project, cost of the tooling, with the time saved, how much will how much of a saving will you get? So reiterating a good point there about knowing your audience and talking their language, to which is again it's what we mentioned with Keith Clen's talk. Like he does that a lot, mentions that a lot in his talk. We've got a very lengthy answer from Louise Gibbs from listening to your 2,000 word emails, Mark. This is awesome.
I see your 2,000 mark and I raise you.
Fantastic.
I think like the general thrust is kind of the same sort of idea as what I was saying with the retro thing. But she's talking about more informal situations to have conversations and talk about tools and talk about solutions to things. But it's the same sort of idea of having conversations about things. I think if you just show up and you're like, I want this thing, that's not. I find the nature of that sometimes can put people's backs up, and it's very hard to change people's minds once they've made a decision. So like the slowly sort of establishing that idea is useful. I'm also reminded of something I was taught by one of my delivery leads, partners at consultancy I worked at, and he talked about how basically what you do is you have conversations with lots of people in an organization about the same thing, because the point is that you're not going to be in the room when the decision is made sometimes, but what you want to be is in enough people's minds that when the decision is made, there's a critical mass and they feel like they've made the decision. Yeah. So like he was sort of saying, if they're like, we need a consultancy for this new project, 5 of them go, consultancy X, they're the ones, and they're like, oh yeah, isn't it good? Well done us, we've identified the right person. But really what you've done is you've put the groundwork in by getting everyone to sort of take that step. So it's that same sort of idea here of sort of, talking about a tool, something that you want to see adopted, but rather than just come in and go, we're doing this, it's more make it feel like it's more of an organic process.
Yeah, I think that, just like she says, she's like priming them, isn't she? She's like giving them, like just making more people aware, so they actually, when you mention Tool A, as you said, they go, oh, I remember that. I'm sure I know something about that. So she's repeated, re-emphasizing some of the stuff we mentioned here about if your team is reluctant. So she's mentioned, if you can find alternative tools, perhaps cheaper or even free. They can't say no to something that is free. Again, I think people need to be very careful about the word free. It does come with, if we translate a lot of stuff to time, yes, it's free, but like, where's the additional cost? Then I'd also say, don't, like what she said there, perfect example of, bring it back up again. So, you try the free alternative, but if you're then still hitting certain pain points, it's justified, to try the other tool. And then we can jump back to the experiment that Christoph mentioned and we mentioned ourselves, run the experiment, see if the pain points go away, and then again argue the case that those pain points have a value and that value is X and the tool costs Y. Let's go ahead and do that. Really nice confirmation of some of the points. How do you demonstrate? So again, she's just talking about lots of sharing, really, to try and make people aware of the new tools, running sessions that they can come and attend at their own point, researching and demoing, and just generally trying to, again, make people aware that, these tools and things are out there. So yeah, really nice answer, Louise. Nice and thorough.
And then, same sort of thing again from Mercer about talking to people. Demos are very useful as well. I think that's the thing to... sorry, I just saw Resta Test talk about best free example, Facebook. Yeah, the consequences of free are very grand with that place. There's something we talk about, like when we're teaching and building like lesson plans and how we go about teaching is that it doesn't have to all be verbal. Sometimes actually a demonstration is a more effective means to teach someone about an idea or a concept. And I think the same thing happens here, which is that having an attitude towards the fact that your demonstration isn't just there to support your argument, but it's an opportunity for those people to learn and gain that understanding that you have as well, I think is really useful.
Yeah. Fantastic. So if you've not answered today's challenge, obviously head to the club, chip in, share your answers. We've got a great, huge body of knowledge like formulating on the club right now, and hopefully it's nice and curated with the way that we've done these challenges. So hopefully in the future, lots of testers and people curious about this will be able to discover it. And I think that's it. We are back tomorrow. I think back to midday, is it, Mark, or 12:30? I always forget. But
back to 12:30 tomorrow. Yep.
Back at
Normal
12:30 with challenge 13. Ooh. Shame it's not Friday. So yeah, we'll wear our scariest costumes. No, we're not, because it's not Friday. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, 12:30. If you're not signed up yet, again, subscribe. Get it. Get the challenges in your inbox, and don't worry about partaking. There is no right or wrong answers to any of these questions. We're simply trying to get conversations going, get new ideas, old ideas, recirculating things that have been around for a while. We just want to generate as much awesome content about tools and everything that goes with them as possible. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
See you tomorrow, everyone. Bye.